Last year at this time, it was Michigan as the newcomer to the college football playoff party. Now, Michigan's the old standby back-to-back Big Ten champions taking on this year's newcomer to the ninth college football playoff, 3-seed TCU in the 2-3 matchup. Let's size up the Horned Frogs and the Michigan Wolverines meeting for the first time in school history. Michigan's rushing offense, one of the best in the nation, of course. 6th rated. Big physical offensive line, won the Joe Moore Award last season, probably in line to win it once again, especially with newcomer, the Virginia transfer Olu Oluwatimi as one of the best centers in all of college football. Michigan can run it down your throat, even missing arguably the best back in college football in Blake Corum. We saw what Donovan Edwards did both in the Big Ten championship game and most famously against Ohio State. Taking on TCU. Vulnerable against the run, 64th in the nation in rush defense, number 66 in yards per carry against. They have already faced some of the best running backs in college football, and they just did it this past weekend in conference championship play against Kansas State. Did you see little 5'6" Deuce Vaughn? If you're not familiar, he has been one of the best backs in college football for quite some time. Elusive, quick in the open field. He is something else, and he's a tough runner. So TCU has seen some great backs. Kansas State moved it for 205 yards on the ground, 4.7 yards per carry, but K-State is the 17th rated rushing attack in the nation against Michigan's number 6. In the first matchup, in which Kansas State led by 18 before TCU came all the way back, more on that later, K-State ran for $158 and 5.3 yards per carry, so there was room for Michigan to move the football on the ground against TCU. Many believe, including me, Bijan Robinson is the best running back in college football, and he only ratted against TCU 29 yards on 12 carries in TCU's 17-10 win in Austin. A long carry for Bijan Robinson in this game against the TCU defense. They really were stout in this one. 9 yards. That was a long carry for Bijan. Oklahoma's got the 13th rated rushing attack in all of college football. They ran for $179 against TCU at 3.7 yards per carry. Javante Barnes ran for 5.6 and Eric Gray at 4.6. The main run stuffers for TCU, Johnny Hodges, Jamoy Hodge, and D. Winter, some of the quickest backers you will see and most athletic in college football. How about that TCU passing game? Of course, it's led by Max Duggan. Max Duggan put on a heroic effort in the Big 12 championship game and almost got it done. If you did not see it, you need to see it. So go back, check out TCU against Kansas State. Watch the extended highlights or try to watch the entire game because it is a tremendous effort by a guy that had heart surgery in 2020. Just a tremendous story as he will make his way to New York, most likely for the Heisman ceremony. 30 touchdowns, 4 picks, and he can run it. He ran for almost 100 yards in this game against Kansas State and almost willing TCU to a win. They, of course, went to overtime and lost at 31-28 as the ball was about 3 inches from the goal line. Max Duggan might have scored. Kendre Miller might have scored, but review said no, sir. He has been the starting quarterback at TCU, Max Duggan, now for 4 years, and the first 3 years were pretty pedestrian. And he had to fight for his job this season and actually lost the battle. Max Duggan back in the lineup and led TCU to the magical season. Sonny Dykes, don't discount him, of course. He's the guy that makes it all go. He took over a football team that was 5-7 last year. We have yet to see this in the college football playoff era. A 5-7 team that makes it all the way back to make the college football playoff the next season. Sonny Dykes, one of the great offensive minds in college football, knows how to run a program, has done it for 13 years now at Louisiana Tech, SMU, Cal, first season at TCU. This is going to be by far the biggest stage that he's ever been on. He just performed on his biggest stage that he's ever seen. That was the Big 12 championship game. And TCU made a great comeback in this one in the fourth quarter, as they are apt to do. Quentin Johnston, 53 catches, 5 touchdowns. Trey Barber, 34 catches, 4 touchdowns. Those guys are the big athletic future NFL receivers for TCU, but they also can run like the wind. They've got a little guy in Darius Davis. Look for him in the return game. He is one of the very best and fastest and quickest players in college football. TCU, this is what they've done ever since Gary Patterson got this program running. They have more players on their roster that run for over 20 miles per hour than any team in the nation. They're one of the fastest in regards to wide receivers and defensive back play in college football. Michigan, be ready to run. Mike Sanders-Still and Will Johnson, the five-star in particular. Will Johnson coming off that stellar Big Ten championship game with 2 interceptions. Will Johnson's a guy that, of course, was signed and much expected of him. Played only 10 to 15 snaps throughout most of the season, then got his reps increased week after week, and now is a mainstay in the Michigan backfield. If TCU needs to kick it for a game-winning field goal, they've got the guy most likely in Griffin Kell, 16 of 18. And of course, the story of the TCU season has been the comeback. They were losing in the first matchup against Kansas State at home, 28-10. They roared back from 18 down to win that game. That was 1 week after they were down 17 to Oklahoma State, and they won that game in overtime. They also trailed Baylor late and had the kamikaze rush onto the field for the game-winning field goal with no timeouts and the clock ticking 5, 4, 3, and boom, through the uprights to beat Baylor. And again, that's Griffin Kell getting the job done. They also trailed K-State in the Big 12 championship game by 11 before coming back in the fourth quarter to tie that game, ultimately losing in overtime. Check out our Michigan Live show every Wednesday, 5 Eastern, and bring your comments and questions for Dre, Dez, and myself. Again, it's Michigan Live Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time as we get you set for the college football playoff game. TCU taking on Michigan. This is our early preview, and we will talk it up throughout the month of December right here at the Voice of College Football. Michigan